There's so much that goes into a truly great glass of wine. The soil, the sun, the winemaker's touch. But what if I told you there's a hidden ingredient? Something you can't taste, but something that has a massive impact. And that ingredient is energy. Today, we're going to uncork this really surprising story of how wineries use power and how just looking at their electricity bills can show them a path to some incredible savings and efficiencies. So let's get into it. So, next time you're pouring a glass, just think about this for a second. Beyond the price tag on the bottle, what's the actual energy cost? Turns out, making wine is an incredibly power-hungry process. And that creates this huge, often kind of overlooked challenge. And when I say huge, I mean, wow, just look at this number. Every single year, wineries across the European Union use 1.75 billion kilowatt hours of electricity. That is a colossal amount of energy. And it really makes you ask the question, is all of that power being used as well as it could be? Okay, so this gets us right to the heart of the problem. You see, as wineries grow, they're always adding new equipment, new processes, kind of layering them on top of the old stuff. And when that happens, major inefficiencies can start to creep in. A lot of that massive energy number we just saw isn't just used, it's wasted. The real trick is figuring out where and when that waste is actually happening. Now, the old school way of finding this waste is to do a full-on energy audit. But these things are often incredibly complicated, they're expensive, they take a ton of time, especially for a business that's, well, supposed to be focused on making wine. So the researchers behind this study asked a really brilliant question. What if there was a simpler, much faster way to do this? And it turns out, there is. This brings us to a really clever and fast new way of looking at things. It's an approach that doesn't need a bunch of complex new sensors or pricey consultants. Nope. It just uses the data the winery already has. Basically, 1 year's worth of electricity bills from their power company. The whole process, which the researchers call a two-factor analysis, is just beautifully simple. Step 1, you get the data. Step 2, you plot it all out on a chart and look for the big patterns. And step 3, you split the year into 2 totally distinct periods. Your regular, baseline, ordinary energy use, and then those high-demand, extraordinary times. And from that simple breakdown, we get 2 really important metrics. The first one is the power request level ratio. You can think of this as the intensity metric. It tells you exactly how high that energy spike is. Are we talking about a little bump, or is it a giant mountain? And the second key metric is the duration ratio. This is all about time. It measures how long that high power period actually lasts. Is it just a quick flash in the pan, or does it drag on for months? Together, these 2 numbers give you this powerful, crystal clear snapshot of how a winery really uses its energy. So here's the thing. This isn't just a theory. The researchers took this exact method and applied it to a big Italian winery, one that produces something like 24 million bottles of wine a year. Let's take a look at what they uncovered. Okay, now what's so cool about this chart is how clearly it tells the story. For most of the year, that big, long section they labeled I, the power demand is pretty low and stable. But then, right around August 22nd, look what happens. The power usage just goes vertical. This right here is the harvest. It's the busiest time of the year, and it creates this absolutely enormous spike in energy demand. And this just perfectly illustrates the whole imbalance, right? The extraordinary period, the harvest, it only lasts for about 8 weeks. That's just 18% of the year. But during that super short window, the power demand goes up by over 300% compared to the rest of the year. It's an incredibly short, but unbelievably intense burst of energy use. So why does this matter so much? Well, it's all about that peak. Because of that huge spike, the winery has to build, maintain, and pay for an electrical system. We're talking transformers, switchboards, the grid connection, the whole shebang. That's big enough to handle that absolute maximum power draw. But here's the thing. It only actually needs that massive capacity for 2 months. For the other 10 months of the year, it's paying for this oversized system that it's not even close to fully using. But the analysis didn't stop there. By zooming in a little closer on the weekly data, the researchers found another really fascinating pattern, another clue that was hiding in plain sight. So take a look at this. That top line shows the average weekly power use during that super frantic harvest period. You can see it's high all week,
But then on Saturday and Sunday, boom, it drops off in a big way. So even during the winery's absolute busiest season, there's this really clear weekend lull.
And if you put a number to it, it's a 20% drop in energy use every single weekend. This is another one of those hidden inefficiencies. It suggests that the work is really getting crammed in Monday to Friday, which creates higher peaks than necessary. Some of that energy load could probably be shifted to the weekend to kind of flatten that curve out.
Okay, so what do you do with all this amazing information? This is where the analysis gets really powerful. It doesn't just point out problems, it points directly to some really clear, actionable solutions.
The data suggests a few really smart moves. For one, they could flatten that weekly curve just by tweaking staff schedules to move some jobs to the weekend. They could also get better at planning exactly when grapes arrive and when machines get fired up, just to avoid having everything running all at once. And for that huge short-term harvest spike, maybe it's actually cheaper to just rent some temporary cooling units for 2 months instead of paying for a giant permanent system all year long. And that, right there, is the beautiful takeaway from all of this. This problem wasn't solved with millions of dollars in fancy new technology. It was solved by taking a fresh look at a simple spreadsheet of data the winery already had on hand. It just proves that sometimes the most powerful insights are hiding in the information we see every single day.
Which kind of leaves us with one final thought. This whole idea doesn't just apply to wineries, right? It could apply to factories, to office buildings, to shipping and logistics, maybe even to how we run our own homes. So the real question is, what other big, expensive problems are out there that could be solved if we just knew how to look at the data that's already sitting right in front of us?